Hey everybody, Ray Hayden here, and this video is going to be about Google Earth Flight Simulator. Now, I have the side window open. I normally have it shut, and it looks like that when we're closed, and it looks like that when the side thing is open. I have, as you can see here, photorealistic 3D mode established, but for Google Earth Flight Simulator, some things look better in 2 dimensions, and some things look better in 3 dimensions. And let's go into that now. First, I'll take it off. I'll put it in 2 dimensions. You didn't notice anything change because we're too far away. But let's go up to this little white dot right up here, right where my glove is. I'm going to move it here. That little white dot underneath, underneath the hand indicator is actually Atlanta International Airport. So we'll go up here to Atlanta International, and let's go into one of the runways, right? And we'll get close to the ground over here. Let me straighten up on that runway real quick and get close to the ground. So let's get it down close to the ground here. And the runway looks like garbage, all right? This is 2-dimensional mode. The runway environment looks like trash to me, all right? It's all out of focus and everything over here. But look what happens when we put it in 3-dimensional mode. It looks great. The whole runway looks great. If we were to fly down this runway in flight simulator mode and make our landing, everything looks fantastic. It just looks great. Plus, the bonus is we have the buildings and other airplanes and everything. Downtown Atlanta in the distance is looking good. It's at a distance, so it's going to be kind of out of focus right now. And if we're in a slow-moving airplane and we kind of go over towards downtown, then the downtown area would see it fills in. And in the buildings, as we get closer, we'll start looking nicer and everything else. So let's get a little closer to those. And the fine details will pop in and everything else. So if we're flying, if we use the flight simulator and we use the SR-22, which is the single-engine propeller plane, things will get into focus as we're approaching them. If we're using the F-16, things will kind of stay a little bit fuzzy on us, right? So what I want to show you, though, between the 2D and the 3-dimensional, 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional thing, is things are better under certain circumstances and not so great under others. So we're still in 3-dimensional mode, and let's go down to this other little airport, not a main airport. Like, a lot of us live somewhat close to some airport somewhere, somehow, some way. But here's an airport as an example of one that's not a major airport. And in 3-dimensional mode, we kind of get these artifacts here. They're not, they look like bumps on the runway. And when you're going down the runway, they look like bumps all right, right? You're going down here and things look kind of sloppy and bouncy and everything else. So you see what I mean? And what I'm talking about when I put it in motion, right? There's all these bumps in here. They're not really there. If we put it in 2-dimensional mode, they're not there, right? So thankfully on this runway, it's not quite as bumpy as it might look. But if we're in 2-dimensional mode, the far end of the runway is out of focus, right? So it doesn't look so great there. Put it in 3D realistic mode, looks great. You got the tree lines looking good. This little dirt road on the side looks good. Everything looks great, but there's another thing about it. So let's zoom back out. I'm gonna punch north here so we get oriented to the north, and I'm gonna go down to Broward County, Florida, down here where Fort Lauderdale is. And this is 595. It's also known as Alligator Alley and State Road 84. It's actually got a couple of names to it. And I want to go into an area where there's a sidewalk. I'm going to take it out of 3-dimensional mode right now and go down this area right here. And let's zoom in towards the ground. And I want to show you this, where is it? There's that sidewalk. Now, there's a very long, exercise bicycle path goes off this direction. Goes off both directions over here. Of course, the 2-dimensional mode makes things look funny. But let's watch what happens to this sidewalk when I put it in 3-dimensional mode. Okay, it vanishes. Number one, this bridge looks a whole lot better. This is actually what the bridge looks like if we were to get closer to it. All right, so that's looking okay. It's looking pretty good, pretty representative. And but the sidewalk's gone. So that's an exercise path is gone. So what I'm saying is, in 2-dimensional mode, if you're up in the air flying around and everything, you're, some distance, let's go out a little bit and then tilt it on an angle. But I think if you're flying pretty high, that's 43,000. Here's 20,000 feet. At 20,000 feet, maybe you want to have it in 2-dimensional because that's photorealistic in how things actually look, right? I want to show you one more thing about that and to demonstrate the timing of the whole thing. This is, I don't know if you ever heard of it, it's called The Villages. And it's this very large chunk of real estate up here. All this habitation up here, people all, rack them, pack them, and stack them in this environment up here. And I'm going to focus down here in this area. It's like kind of the newer area that's built up. And if I put it in 3-dimensional mode, all of it's gone. Look at all this housing that just vanished off the face of the earth here. So let's put these houses back where they belong. And I'm going to tell you, this is basically in two-dimensional mode. It's more realistic as in the current situation. This housing's all been built out, and I'm sure it's been built out since then. So it's not absolute. This is like the image date says March 17, 2017, right? And it's 2019 now. So it's almost 2 years out of date, but we don't get the imagery information in three-dimensional mode, but we do get some really great three-dimensional looking views, right? So if we go down here to the housing and kind of tilt up, let's tilt down a little bit more. So we see three-dimensional housing, right? So it's fantastic, it looks great. So if you're flying like 2,000-3,000 feet off the ground in the single engine airplane, you're a couple thousand feet, this is 1,500 feet off the ground, things are looking pretty great. In the F-16, you're not going to see things so clearly. So maybe you want to take a look at things in 2 dimensions, because this is going to be more accurate, especially at a little higher altitude. Like let's go up to about there's 7,500 feet. This is pretty much what the ground is going to look like more accurately. So that's the difference between 2-dimension and 3-dimensional mode in Google Earth Flight Simulator. Now, I want to show you some really cool things about some airports up here. But this really, I'm going to put my glove up here. I'm going to move the hand out of the way. There's a bright white spot under where my hand was, all right? So that's it. That's Atlanta. Okay, so you can see Atlanta International Airport from space, right? So it's right there. There's a big bright white spot on the map right there. Okay, other things you can see real handy. Miami area is down here in the state of Florida. This is Lake Okeechobee. Over here on the west coast, this is the peninsula hanging out in the Gulf. Over here is St. Petersburg, and that big water area is Tampa Bay. This little bump on the state of Florida, let's move it a little closer. This bump over here on the east side of Florida is Cape Canaveral. And Orlando is actually, there's 2 lakes. There's a lake here, it's kind of a crescent-shaped lake, and there's a round lake. Let's get a little closer on that. These 2 lakes here, and west of Cape Canaveral, there's 2 little white dots right there above the glove. All right, let's zoom in on those a little bit. That's Orlando International right there. So it's easy to find, right? Another cool thing that's really easy to find is Jacksonville. If you follow this large snaky river up here, it actually comes out here and goes out into the Atlantic Ocean. That's the St. Johns River, and that goes up to Jacksonville. So here's some cities that are pretty easy to find. And if you follow this coastline right here, and you go inland a little bit, I'm pretty sure this is somewhere close. It is indeed. It is Tallahassee. There's an airport right here, which is the reason why I have it. Tallahassee is also the capital of the state of Florida. And if you go right in here, here's a football stadium. There's some other cool things I tried to make videos about in there where you can actually walk around at ground level within that stadium. It's kind of cool. But anyway, so let's zoom back out here. And but those are some neat things that you can see. Now, I'm going to use Florida in a different video. I'm going to make another video about this. And I'm going to show you some really cool things about the Fort Lauderdale area and some great indications that you can find airports while you're flying around from pretty far distances away, because there's some visual ground indicators on the ground level that you can use to locate an area. So I'm going to go down here into the Fort Lauderdale area in a different video, and I'm going to show you how to find like 4 or 5 different airports very quickly. All right, in another video. So with that, let's wrap this one up. I just want to show you the difference that the 3-dimensional mode is older imagery. 2-dimensional mode is more current imagery. But if you want to fly into major airports, you probably want to use the 3-dimensional imagery to fly into those, because it's going to be a much more enjoyable environment for you to fly around in Google Earth Flight Simulator. Of course, to get in there, you can use the Tools key button up top and then hit Enter Flight Simulator. You'll get this indication right here. You can also, if you look at the tools, you can hit Control plus Alt plus A at the same time, and that will put you in the same map. And you can select the F-16 or the SR-22. This is a single engine piston airplane. Of course, this is a jet fighter, which goes a lot faster. So if you want to move around quickly, you can do that. And if you want to fly a little slower, do some flight seeing kind of stuff, then you can use the single engine airplane for that. So with that, before, until I catch you in the next video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, like this video. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, make comments below. That's your calling card to mention that you've been here. And until I catch you in the next video, take care and be well.